This is the fake Barbie girl who committed murder in the most disturbing way possible, and you won't believe why she did it. This is the true story of Abigail White, who was a 24-year-old girl who lived in Bristol, United Kingdom. Now, Abigail was notoriously known for being what she calls herself a self-dubbed Barbie girl. Bleached blonde hair, kind of big body parts, everything you need basically Barbie has. That's what she intended on being like. Now, not only was she a self-dubbed Barbie girl, she was actually a OnlyFans model. So she basically did OnlyFans for a living, and she had told people that she'd made over £50,000 a year. She was making a lot of money from basically selling photos of herself online, videos, doing adult work to all of her subscribers who are OnlyFans. So that's what she did for a living, and that kind of goes with her Barbie girl name. She kind of wanted to become a Barbie girl, cam girl, effectively, and that's what she did for work. Now, while she was doing all of this adult work, she had a boyfriend, and her boyfriend was called Bradley Lewis. This was the partner of Abigail White. They actually had 3 children together. Bradley Lewis has 4 children, but they have 3 children together, and they were in what seemed to be a long relationship. However, things came out that in fact this relationship wasn't actually healthy at all. In fact, it was very unhappy. It was revealed that Abigail would be actually physically abusing and attacking Bradley throughout the relationship, trying to scare him, trying to fearmonger him, potentially blackmailing. A lot of things came out which she actually admitted later on in the story of doing to him. So she would basically try and scare him in multiple different ways, because she never believed him. He would always go out and she would never believe where he went, or he would never really tell her. So the only way she would basically get information out of him was to scare him and threaten him and do really vile acts of disturbingness to try and just basically get her own boyfriend to speak to her. I'm going to play you some voice notes right now, and viewer discretion is advised. These are voice notes that were found on Abigail's phone after she committed the crime, but it makes sense to play them now just so you can get some context. This is how she described her own relationship with her boyfriend Bradley. I'm going to play it right now because she basically tells you herself how she kind of acts and how their relationship is.
The word that comes out of that boy's mouth, I have to beat the living daylights out of him for him to tell me the truth, and he still don't tell me the truth. He only tells me the truth when he thinks I'm gonna kill him. Like when I get a knife out, like when I stab him, like, oh, I just don't get this kid. But obviously, I have no limit when I get angry, and like obviously he said that I need help with that because people are generally saying to me, one of you are gonna end up dead, like. And I fully believe that I'm quite capable of killing him if he hurts me again. Or I'm gonna end up being in prison.
So Abigail sent these voice notes on her phone, which obviously, like I said, was recently discovered by the police after she was arrested. But she basically sent these voice notes to her friend, describing how she's not mentally stable to be able to be in a relationship, really. Like, she can't control her anger, she's probably gonna like kill somebody, like she cannot physically do life how it's meant to be done. Like, she has anger issues, she clearly has some problems, and her boyfriend Bradley was clearly aware of this too, because she said that they both need to work on it. So they were in this relationship where it seemed like Bradley was getting really badly attacked, potentially even stabbed, to be scared, and he wasn't happy at all. In fact, he actually wanted to break up with Abigail, which is where this story gets a bit deep. So not too long after these voice notes, Bradley and Abigail were going to the pub. They were going to the pub, or like a restaurant pub, with one of Abigail's friends, one of her pals. So they went to the pub, and basically they were just having like drinks and stuff. They wasn't really on best terms, but Bradley wanted to break up with Abigail that night. That was the plan of him. He wanted to go to the pub and basically leave her. He kind of wanted to put her down like gently in a subtle way, because he was scared that if he left her, she would kill herself. In fact, actually, when Abigail left the table to maybe get a drink or go to the toilet, he actually told Abigail's friend that he wanted to leave her, but he was too scared to leave her because he knows that she would probably kill herself if he does. So he's trying to ask Abigail's friend for some advice, like, how can I leave this crazy girl? That's what he was kind of basically saying, and yeah, things kind of went out of control from here. So it was Friday the 25th of March. and they were in this pub and they were drinking. And Bradley obviously had then told Abigail that, you know, he wasn't happy, and she started getting really drunk. She drank a bottle of wine, she drank a Jaeger bomb and 2 rum and cokes. So she was pretty hammered, she was pretty smashed and drunk. And this is where she then started getting a bit more aggressive. The aggressiveness in her started coming out. She actually threw a face at Bradley, she actually threw a drink at Bradley's face after she'd found out that he told her pal that he wanted to leave her. And this was the final straw for Abigail. She'd had enough. She could not control her anger anymore. And she basically, like she said in the voice notes, was planning on just completely getting rid of Bradley forever. Now, again, this girl was only 24 years old, and her boyfriend, they have 3 children together, but that didn't stop her from what she was about to do. She was committed to doing this next act of disturbingness, and there was nothing going to stop her. So around about 7:50 p.m. on Friday, 25th of March, they were leaving the pub. They had had enough. Abigail had just thrown a drink into Bradley's face out of anger. So they're both fuming right now, they're both angry, they both want to go home. And Bradley's last words to Abigail's friend who was in the pub with him was, "I'm going to be dead when I get home." That was his last words that he told Abigail's pal. And unfortunately, that was a reality. That this was the last moment that anybody would see Bradley Lewis alive, pretty much, because Abigail White had full intentions of murdering Bradley that night. And that's exactly what she tried to do. But she did it in a weird way. She didn't just murder him, she tried blaming it on him, which I'm going to explain now. So when they got back home, Abigail and Bradley were heard arguing and screaming in the house by neighbours. A few moments later, just minutes after they got home, Abigail was heard running into her garden screaming because police would not answer the phone. She'd rang 999 and basically told them that her boyfriend is dying, basically, on the floor. The neighbours came round to discover that Bradley was on his back. He'd been stabbed in the heart, and he was basically like passing out. He was dying on the floor right there and then. And Abigail was not telling the truth. She was telling everybody that he'd stabbed himself. And again, she was trying to get away with this whole thing. And obviously the police turned up, they arrested Abigail, or they took her into question. And she told the police, like I said, that he stabbed himself. They had arguments, they were both drinking, and yeah, they both wasn't happy in the relationship, and he actually stabbed himself. Bradley Lewis was rushed into hospital with severe stab wound into his heart, and the next day he unfortunately was pronounced dead. He didn't survive the stabbing, what Abigail White had just done to him. Later on, Abigail was questioned and quizzed by the police multiple times, and finally she actually admitted that she did stab him. She tried murdering him. She wanted to scare him. That was her word. She wanted to scare him because he was leaving her. So this was a completely twisted story. She did not want Bradley to leave her, and there was no way she was going to allow that to happen, so she stabbed him. I think she didn't mean to probably kill him, but you know, stabbing somebody in the heart is a pretty good shot at killing somebody. So regardless, you know, and also in the past, in the voice notes, you heard that she already planned this. She already knew that she was going to eventually kill him. In those voice notes, she told her friends that she's going to kill him one day. She can't control herself. And I think Bradley Lewis also knew deep down as well, one day something bad was going to happen. Either she would kill herself or he was going to get killed. And I think he was a bit scared to leave her because of this reason and exactly what had happened. On October the 21st, 2022, just a couple of days before this video was posted, she was actually sentenced in prison to life with the minimum of 18 years. So Abigail was found guilty of murder, and like I said, she would now spend the rest of her life, or minimum of 18 years in jail. Some argue that 18 years is not enough because she's only 24, which means she's gonna be out in her 40s or 50s and back to her life. But others argue that she's not mentally stable. She knew she was going to do this, and she also herself knew what she was going to do. This is the crazy story of Abigail White, the fake South Dub Barbie girl murderer who murdered her boyfriend and had the children together. It's a very sad story. My thoughts and prayers go to all of the families all the victims who are affected by this story. My heart goes out for you. I really am sorry to hear about all of this. But if you guys want to hear more true crime stories and things that happen in the world, which is just crazy, make sure you subscribe, as all I post on this channel is true crime stories once or twice a week, which you guys seem to like to enjoy. This 66-year-old woman told a 999 operator that she was going to stab her husband in the heart, but he doesn't have one. Whilst she was on the phone to emergency services, you will not believe what she did next. Before we get into today's story, if you're a fan of true crime in half the time, make sure you subscribe to my channel. This is a true story about Penelope Jackson, who is a 66-year-old woman from Somerset, United Kingdom. On February 13th, 2021, Penelope and her husband David Jackson were at home and they were about to eat lunch. It was lockdown in the United Kingdom, meaning nobody could really leave their house because of the COVID pandemic, and they were forced to be stuck in the house together, and they were just getting ready to eat some lunch. Penelope and David thought it would be a good idea to get onto a Zoom call with their daughter and their son-in-law, Isabella and Tom. It was their birthday and they couldn't really go and see them in person due to the pandemic, so the best next thing they could do was get on a Zoom call, have lunch over the camera with obviously their daughter and their son-in-law. Now, before they got on the Zoom call, they were actually having an argument, both Penelope and David, about the food they were about to eat. They were having a massive argument, but they got on the Zoom call and they kind of just shut off, so the daughter and the son-in-law wouldn't really kind of pick up on any tensions. They just kind of played it easy on camera and just sat down for a nice lunch. Now, it's alleged that David Jackson was a very violent, physical abusing man. Penelope was his third wife, and supposedly David was always horrible to Penelope. He would always belittle her, he would always abuse her, some apparently even physically attack her. It seems like he just wasn't a nice man. And you know, previously before the phone call, he was also being horrible to her again, like he supposedly was every single day, really bringing Penelope down every single day throughout her marriage, and just really being nasty towards Penelope. In fact, David's actual brother said that David would push Penelope to a limit intentionally to wind her up, belittle her, bully her, and be mean to her. And his own brother said these words about him. David's brother also said that David has a huge drinking problem, and that was one of the main reasons they stopped talking as brothers, because he was addicted to drinking and he had a massive drinking problem. And when he drank, he would always be vile to anybody, sober or drunk supposedly. He would just be horrible, but the drink supposedly made it a lot worse for him because he was always intoxicated basically. Also, David's brother said that he can recall that one day David actually tried strangling his own mother, Lillian. That's from his brother, and that's a bit about David. Yeah, he just doesn't seem like a very nice person. So they continued with this phone call, and when the phone call ended, Penelope decided that she had had enough. The previous argument before the phone call, she was biting her tongue over just for the phone call, and when the phone call ended, she decided she was going to take back control. She was fed up of being bullied, fed up of being picked on, fed up of being abused. She wanted to take back control, and she was very angry at David. They were both in this house. They just had a phone call with obviously their stepson and their daughter. She had to kind of act normal, but inside she was fuming. They just had an argument about food, and although it was minuscule, it was just one thing after another, and apparently this was the tipping edge for her that made her do something which is very shocking. Now, the food they were eating was Bubble and Squeak. If you're not sure what that is, it's basically where you take your Sunday lunch, mix it up. If you guys don't know what it is, you can Google it. It just basically looks like this, and this was what they was arguing about. This was brought from their daughter, and no one really knows specifically what they had argued about the food, whether it wasn't very nice or they didn't want it, but it seems that David said something to obviously Penelope to make her wound up, to make her really angry, whether it was belittling or being mean or bullying her again, whatever it was. Penelope had enough, and she was about to commit the biggest crime ever. So Penelope supposedly got a kitchen knife and went up to David and said, "I'm gonna stab you." David responded to him, because he's so used to controlling behavior, he was like, "You're not gonna do that, you wouldn't stab me," trying to control her again supposedly. But Penelope had had enough at this point. She had been sick and she was tired and had enough of being bullied and controlled, so she stabbed him. She went on and stabbed her own husband, but after she stabbed him, she did something very surprising. Now, once you stab somebody, well, once anybody stabs somebody normally, they try and cover it up. They try and actually, you know, get rid of the evidence. They don't want to be caught for stabbing somebody. Penelope, however, had something different in mind. She stabbed him and she reacted in a very, very different way. People who commit crimes normally don't ring the police on themselves. However, Penelope rang the emergency services and told them she just stabbed her husband. This is a voice note from that phone call.
Are you with him now?
Well, I might just go and stab him again, but...
Alright, do not stab him again.
Why?
Alright, madam,
I don't...
how many times have you stabbed him?
3 times.
3 times, okay.
Once I thought I'd get his heart. Well, he hasn't got one. And then twice in the abdomen.
As you can hear, she was confident in what she was saying. She's had enough of being bullied, abused, mentally controlled. She'd had enough. She couldn't handle it no more. It seems like she was pushed to a limit so much by this abusive husband, and she stabbed him. She just blatantly admitted straight to the emergency services that she stabbed him. She didn't care to tell him anything. She just went through it and told him that she just stabbed her husband once, just before she phoned the emergency services. Now, not only did she stab him once, while she was on the phone to emergency services, the emergency services were telling her to put the knife down and not do anything else. But she had something different in mind. She actually stabbed him again while she was on the phone to the emergency services. She actually was heard saying, "Why can't I do this? I'm gonna do it." And the husband was also heard screaming in the background, which I won't play that bit because it's quite disturbing, but he was heard in the background on this phone call of screaming after she just stabbed him again whilst on the phone to emergency services. And when she stabbed him, she also told the police while she was doing it, "I'm stabbing him," like straight up brutally honest. Like, this is the most craziest thing ever for like a murderer to just tell the police as she's currently doing it what she's doing. Now, while she was on the phone to the police and emergency services, they already sent units to the house. They were already on the way to Penelope's house because obviously she's not lying at this point. She's like, the police can hear the person, David's being stabbed in the background. She's being honest, so they have to send emergency services out to, even if it was a force. So they sent them out. And when they got to a house, they knocked on the door and they asked, Penelope answered the door, and she didn't seem sad. She actually seemed very, very, like, almost like relieved. Like she was relieved that the police were there. She was actually relieved that the police had turned up and she was going to get arrested. One of the first things she says was, I admit it all. I just stabbed him. He's in there, he's dying. Hopefully he's dying more. One of the things she actually said, like I said, was she said to the police, hopefully he's in there bleeding to death and I hope I could have stabbed him more. Crazy.
Hey madam, do you want to just step outside for me a minute? Thank you.
He's on the kitchen floor.
Okay.
Right, get the ambulance in, pronto. We need
Oh,
CPR.
no, please don't.
Yeah, we need the
I should
ambulance in.
have stabbed him a bit more.
The police kept talking to her and all she kept insisting on was that she was hoping that he was bleeding out. That's what she kept saying. She just hopes that he was bleeding and bleeding out. And yeah, so the police obviously arrested her whilst they were there. There is actually footage as well, which I'll play also in a minute, of them arresting her, putting her into the car, and while she's getting into the car, she's just constantly saying, I'm guilty, arrest me, put me down, I'm a murderer, I hope he's dead, I should have stabbed him more. Play the clip.
I know what I've done.
All right.
And I know why I've done it. And if I haven't done it properly, I'm really annoyed.
So once they obviously got to the police station, Penelope admitted everything. There was enough evidence from her own sayings, and obviously David was pronounced dead after he was stabbed to death. And Penelope admitted everything. She was arrested and she didn't deny anything. She said thank you almost for arresting me. She was thankful. She was thankful to get away from this controlling relationship. It seemed like she was abused for a very long time, and it seemed like the only way out for her was to commit murder, and that's what it seems to be. Penelope was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 18 years. For in the United Kingdom, that's quite a low for some people. If you murder your husband, some people get a lot longer than that. But yeah, she's got minimum 18 years life imprisonment. Now, when I found out about this story and started looking into it, it seems like there's a lot of people in the world who feel sorry for Penelope for all the torture she went through. They actually feel sorry for her because she was pushed so far to her limits that she thought the only way out was to kill and commit murder. She rathered spend life in jail than be near this man anymore. That is how far he abused her and mentally tormented her. She would rather be in prison for the rest of her life and never see anyone ever again than be one more breath with this man. So people felt really sorry for her. Obviously, regardless, she's still a murderer and she still needs punishments. and a lot of people are saying that she is sick for doing this. There's two sides to these opinions, and let me know your guys' thoughts in the comment section below. But yeah guys, this was the true story of Penelope Jackson. If you want to see more true crime stories in half the time, make sure you subscribe to my channel, turn on post notifications, and I'll bring you videos every single day with the craziest, deepest, mysterious true crime stories. This was the last moment caught on CCTV of Megan Newton just moments before she was murdered. And you won't believe what happens next. In today's true crime story, we're covering Megan Newton, who was an 18-year-old girl from the United Kingdom in Stoke-on-Trent. Megan was an 18-year-old girl. She had blonde hair. She liked to go out a lot with her friends and drink, go out for brunches. She liked to chill with her friends a lot. And on this evening, on the 20th of April 2019, she was about to go out as she normally would. She worked in a fish and chip shop, so she worked up until late and then she finished her shift. She started getting ready to go out. You know, like I said, she always likes going out with her friends, so it seemed. So as any other normal night, it was the 20th of April 2019, and she decided that she would finish her shift and go out on a night out. She was caught on CCTV getting home around about 11 PM, going in from her work shift, getting changed from a uniform into her going out clothes, and just after 11 PM, she left apartment, it seems, to go out on the night out. Now she went out, she went out with her friends, she went to a few bars, had a few drinks, really had a good night. Like I said, she really enjoys going out with her friends had a good night with her, and she stayed out for quite a while, you know. She went out at 11 PM, well, she left around 10:45 PM, but she went out around 11, stayed out to early hours of the morning, and just kind of drank as most 18-year-olds do on nights out. Once she'd finished drinking, she obviously wanted to get home. Now this is where the story twists, because this is very disturbing, and this is where the story gets really deep. When she was in school, she knew a guy called Joseph Taylor, a long school friend from many years ago. And as she was leaving the nightclubs and the clubs and the bars, she went to a taxi rank to get in a taxi home, because she obviously had no lift, so she needs to get a taxi home. A normal procedure, it seems to be, for her after a night out. So she went to taxi rank and stood there waiting when she bumped into Joseph Taylor, a friend from many years ago in school. They were good friends, and obviously they had a chat. They were both talking. They were both extremely drunk, and they were both talking in this taxi rank for a while, waiting for a taxi to come for them both to get home. So when Joseph was there and we're talking to Megan, apparently he was telling Megan about how angry his parents were going to be because he was so drunk. He was so intoxicated. He had way much to drink. It was too late in the evening, and if he goes home now, he's probably going to get in a lot of trouble. You know, he's a teenager. He's drank too much. He's probably going to wake everyone up in the house. So he was telling Megan all his problems, you know, how he shouldn't be able to go home, and he's probably going to get told off. So Megan, with the kindness of her heart, basically said to Joseph, look, you can come back to mine. You know, you can stay at mine, let the drink wear off, sober up, and then get up in the morning, go home, and just tell your mum and dad that you stayed at a friend's house and you fell asleep and forgot to tell them. That was the plan. So Joseph was very appreciative of this. There's a CCTV footage of them both getting in a taxi together, as you can see here. And they went back to Megan's house. Again, they were long school friends. Nothing other than that, nothing like romantically. It was just literally friends helping out friends. So they got a taxi and headed back to Megan's place. So it seems that a taxi got back around about 4 AM. There's a CCTV footage here of them getting out the taxi and heading back towards Megan's flat at around 4 AM. So they had a good night. Megan's been out for a few hours. Joseph's been out for a very long time too. And they're going back to Megan's house, as you can see in the CCTV, so they can just go to sleep, wear it off, and that was that. Their apartment complex had CCTV, and this is the footage right here of them walking in through the apartment to Megan's room. And this CCTV footage was the last video ever seen of Megan. After these two individuals walked through that door, Megan was never seen ever again, and she was about to be brutally murdered in the most disturbing, disgusting way. At 5:54 AM, there's a video here of Joseph leaving Megan's room without Megan. He was leaving her apartment with keys that were her keys, not his keys. and he was walking out, caught on CCTV around about 54 a.m. And he went outside and basically threw the key, Megan's key, just in the yard, just threw it away, kind of where she lives. He didn't even try and hide the key. He just threw the key kind of as he walked out, almost like kind of weirdly, like he didn't care. I don't. No one really knows. It's kind of weird. He just threw the key and walked off. Like if you've murdered somebody, people try normally and hide the key or take the key with them. He just left the key kind of where he was. Very strange. And he was caught on CCTV doing that too. Now, police, obviously after this all came out, looked through CCTVs as well, and they found this video where Joseph Trevor was seen to be walking down the road, and he was looking at his hand, almost like a sign of guilt. You can see here, he was caught on CCTV just basically looking at his hands, and on his hand you can see blood. So he seems like he's either panicking or he's just making sure there's nothing on his hands, which there clearly is. So at this point, he's trying to go home. He's just committed a massive murder, and his mind, what was going through his mind right now is unknown, but he's just killed one of his best friends from school, murdered her, and he's just left the body there, threw the key away, and just walking home. A few hours later in the day, a neighbor was walking around Megan's apartment, especially outside, and they found a key on the floor. The key had loads of blood stains all over the key. So this neighbor rang the police straight away. They tried locating why the key was on the floor, and as you guys remember, Joseph threw a key on the floor. It turned out to be obviously Megan's key, and on the key was loads of blood on it. So the police investigated, and they realized this key is most likely to a room in the apartment complex that Megan was living in. So they went to her apartment, knocked on the door, she wasn't answering. So it took investigators to kind of basically like get inside to find out next, which is very disturbing what happened. Megan had been SA'd, she had been stabbed 9 times in her neck and her back, and she was also strangled on that evening. Joseph and Megan went back to her apartment. This wasn't an accidental murder, this was almost a rage of some sort. To stab somebody 9 times, strangle them and SA them is extremely brutal, and my thoughts go out to all of the families and the victims in this story. It really is disturbing. I'm so sorry to hear about this. But later on that day, Joseph was basically at his house, his parents' house, when the police came. Obviously they looked through CCTV and realized that he was the last person with her, and he was arrested immediately of the murder of Megan. After the police arrested Joseph, he was taken into the police station and he was sentenced to the minimum of 22 years in prison with life. This was the true story of Megan Newton and Joseph Trevor, one of the most disturbing stories I've ever covered, as well, because of all the CCTV footage that really shows all of the in-depth, as you can see, all the in-depth trueness of this story. You can almost watch it unfold, which is so disturbing. And again, for my thoughts to all the families who have had to see this go on, it makes it bring it to life so much more, and it makes it much more disturbing and hard to watch. But that's it guys for this true story. If you want to see more true crime stories, make sure you subscribe to my channel, turn on post notifications. I post true crime stories every single day. So if you are a true crime junkie and you want to keep up with all these stories, I try my best to break down these stories as fast as I can, but without missing out any of the most important details to these crimes. I'll see you guys in the next video.